of credit, I wanted to touch on one of your recent tweet threads because there's a conversation happening right now on Twitter with whether in Bitcoin in the future there's going to be debt and credit. So can you address that? Because I think a lot of people are curious. There are some great minds in the space on both sides of this.
Yeah, so Bitcoin gains velocity through a peer-to-peer network. And so it's unlimited velocity through technology is on Lightning. Bitcoin itself doesn't have enough velocity, but on Lightning on top of that, now you're having unlimited velocity and money. And that solves the problem of velocity, because we used to think in, historically, gold, then credit market on top of gold, paper on top. And that creates an incentive, a human incentive, to remove the gold or make the gold smaller, because then banks can make more money on the leverage. And then remove the gold completely. And then now you have a credit-based system that the only backing is because I tell you it's worthwhile. Now, then that credit grows too big for the economy and you can't pay it back. And the only possible way you can pay it back is default on it or run hyperinflation and pay it back through inflation. So what ends up happening in an economy is 2% inflation isn't enough anymore. You need 7, 8, 10. And so what ends up happening to society is they didn't know that they were being stolen. They didn't know their money was being stolen from them at 2%, but they notice at 10%, right? And they start to rise up, and so they start to what's happening. And that whole system, because we always thought about gold as money and a credit-based system on top, there's a paradigm change happening with Bitcoin, and it doesn't require that credit for velocity of money. So my suspicion over time is the credit is just going to, essentially, you're going to reprice credit through Bitcoin. So and a whole bunch of this is going to default or get inflated away. Bitcoin's going to rise in price as a result of either scenario. But longer term over Bitcoin, you don't need the same credit-based system. So it won't look the same. There'll be slight credit used, but if you think about in a deflationary environment using credit, it would be, you'd have to ensure you're outpacing that deflation to be able to use credit. So the models totally change when you're thinking about whether you're an entrepreneur using credit, right? It would be a risky bet using credit, and actually even a debt provider. A debt provider doesn't want to own the business; they just want to make a yield on it. And so that whole change, housing changes, right? Housing falls to its utility value, and you don't, because it falls to its utility value, you can pay for it with savings rather than credit.
I think most people can't even envision the fact that a house wouldn't be your savings account anymore.
but because we live in a system and we're measuring a new system by that system.
Right.
And so we want to carry all of our biases from the other system into the new system, but it works entirely opposite.
Right.